So we're live. We were just having an amazing conversation, just saying hello, and then things start happening, right? And I said like uncle. So he's uncle now. You can call he calls himself Ulrich, which is some sort of character in some fiction that he likes. And I always forget. I'm always like confused about what your name is. Narish or something. Is that Narish?
Yeah.
Okay, but I'll keep calling. I think I'll call you Uncle Narish because then I'll never. I have to keep saying your name, otherwise I'll never remember it. Anyway, um, so what are we talking about today? We are talking about the before. This is part of a happiness course where I'll be talking about relationships and the environment, economic systems, all sorts of things that affect us in the world, right? But where are all these ideas coming from? I'm going to tell you that yes, it comes from Islam, but so many of the Muslims are so confused that they don't have the same answers. So, where am I getting the answers from? The true rejuvenation or the revolution of Islam. I don't want to say revolution of Islam, but the revolution of humanity that God promised. God never stopped talking, God never stopped guiding. That's a weird thing to think, but most people do think God stopped guiding because their belief in God is a bit shaky, is the way I describe it. They have a vague idea of God, but they can't truly believe that God talks because that's too real for them. I think something around that. That's my sense about it. Um, so, very quick introduction to myself and then Uncle. So, I'm a Muslim. I teach happiness, wisdom based on Islam to non Muslims and Muslims if they want to listen as well. Anybody who wants to listen. That's my intro. Of course, I always link the website to my happiness course on the bottom in the description of the video. Uncle Narish, tell everybody something about yourself.
Uh, I haven't got a YouTube channel. I'm here because I enjoy your channel, basically, and thank you for inviting me. I'm simply married. I'm a father. I am a devout Hindu. I'm an Indian nationalist. I hold very conservative values, and I like the idea of God, and I like to talk about God with most people.
Fantastic, thank you. And it's always a pleasure having you here. Okay, yeah, let me do my usual and share my screen and go through some of my notes. I like going through my notes because it makes things a bit more precise. Maybe it's the wrong way, maybe it's the right way. People give me different kinds of feedback. Um, but here we go. So I've already said this stuff. Okay, one thing I didn't mention, this is why I've got my notes because I always forget stuff. So uh, in the course up to now, I've talked about the benefits of Islam. Then the last show, which I also did with Uncle Narish, was why you should become a Muslim, which is the culmination of all this evidence that Islam is great in so many ways. And then it's like, oh, but there are problems at the moment in Islam. There's so many groups and things like this. What's going on? There's so much anger, violence, so many problems in Muslim countries, etc. It's not all that perfect. What's the solution? And the solution is God never stopped talking. He promised that this problem would occur in great detail. I'm going to outline some of a tiny bit of it. And show you signs that this is the truth. And the person he sent was somebody called Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. His community are called Ahmadi Muslims. Um, and I provide, rather than getting just loads and loads of details about that, I just want to go cover a few ideas in an hour. I think that's the best way. Don't cover too many things, just a few ideas, which are the prophecies and what the prophecies entail, and a general conversation. See what happens. So, as I say, this document that you can see will be linked in the pinned comment of this video, which are all the links that you can find out more yourself. I'll have lots of links. Let's go. So, um, prophecy of eclipse. Okay, so I'm going to be paraphrasing this because even reading it sometimes can feel complicated. So there are two different people in in Islam that are prophecy to come, and they're supposed to come at the same time and work together and all this kind of stuff. But I believe they're the same people. I'm not going to go into that debate yet, or that would be a bit of a sidetrack. Um, well, let's say there are sayings that say they are one and the same person as well. There's lots of evidence for that. But anyway, so one is somebody called the Mahdi, which just means the guided one. I like to guided one. Um, so are all prophets guided ones. Okay, and basically the prophecy is in the month of Ramadan. That's an Islamic month. You might have heard it in terms of when Muslims fast, but it's actually the name of a month in the Islamic calendar, and it goes by the lunar cycles. So not by the sun, but by the moon. And this prophecy is very specific. It says there will be eclipse of the sun and the moon on very specific days within the month of Ramadan. And it is a little bit complicated because it says you'll have an eclipse on the first night. The moon will be eclipsed on the first night. And you have to know a little bit about how eclipses work. And they don't happen any time in the lunar month. They only happen on specific dates. These are established ideas amongst people who know about eclipses. Um, and I forget. It's always very confusing. Basically, everything has to be lined up, and it can't be like a. I mean, even logically, you can't have an eclipse with a crescent. It has to be a full moon, for example. Do you know what I mean? Those kind of things. Um, so I'm always trying to keep it really short and simple because people can. This is why I have these documents so people can read it carefully afterwards. Um, and the prophecy is on one particular night there will be a moon eclipse, and another particular night, when I say particular, like very particular, middle night of those nights. So basically it goes in like groups of three. There's three possible nights that the moon can be eclipsed, and the prophecy will be the first of those nights, and there'll be three possible nights in which the sun can be eclipsed, and it'll be the middle of those, and it'll be in the month of Ramadan, and that will be a sign for this person. And it happened, and so the prophecies I'm picking, there are many prophecies are being fulfilled. I'm picking ones that are really easy to check. How are they easy to check? They're available on the internet. Did I produce a link? Oh man, I wrote you can check, and I didn't write it, but I will update this. Right? There's like links. You can actually literally Google when was you can put I'll give a link anyway, and NASA and places like they provide times of eclipses or that have happened in the past. It's actually easy to calculate because the planets and all the moon and everything, they go in very predictable patterns or paths. So these can be checked very easily by, let's say, third party, non-partisan, whatever you want to call it, not Ahmadi sources. The very interesting response of the other Muslims who reject the Ahmadi Muslims. The Ahmadi Muslims, as I say, are just the best way, a good way to describe it, as a revolutionary group. And the revolution is going to be through love, not fighting. This is also part of a prophecy. And they say it is fake, and that's fantastic. That's a fantastic response, okay? Because what they're saying is, because that's the best they can say, right? They're saying, yes, it was recorded over 1,000 years ago, but it's a fake prophecy. So it's recorded in a really famous book called Adar Qutni, okay, famous person who collect the sayings of Prophet Muhammad. But they say it's fake, and I think that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Because what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that God allowed some liar to make a prophecy and fulfilled it also supposedly for a fake prophet. That's like that's very interesting. I mean, what do you think? Is that like if you really believe in the all-powerful God, okay, would you really create an amazing eclipse? Not. By the way, this prophecy happened twice for this person, Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. Once in the Eastern Hemisphere for people local to him where he lived, and then again for the Western Hemisphere, the West, as it were, so they could be the whole world, as it were, could be witness to this prophecy. What do you think about this response by the other Muslims that say it's a fake prophecy which was fulfilled for a fake prophet and it was huge? I don't know. What do you think?
I think the problem here is the problem with metaphors. What we've got here, you've got a prophecy. Now, it's not the first prophecy or signs in the heavens that someone special has been born. Example being Jesus. When Jesus was born, there was a star in the heavens to signify his birth. Now, obviously, in this prophecy, there's a particular eclipse that will happen when the Mahdi arrives or the Messiah arrives. It's quite precise because, as you know, with the way the stars work, it's all mathematical. So it's quite a precise prophecy, which happens to come to pass. Now, what the problem we've got here is we've got a reluctance in Islam to sort of interpret what a prophet or a Mahdi is. And what you need to do here is we need to go back and look at the metaphor, a beautiful metaphor, which I think is misunderstood. And that is Muhammad being the seal of the prophets. Now, I have no doubt Muhammad was the seal of the prophets. A seal being the mark of excellence. The way I interpret, I know in Arabic it also means closed. When
wow, you've
seal
done a lot of research. You know more than the rest of the Muslims. But anyway, carry on.
So, where was I?
The seal of the prophets. You explained.
Oh yes,
Sorry, I won't interrupt. Yeah.
Sorry, the seal of the prophets. There is that misunderstanding when we say that, for instance, when last week I said the words, there is no God but Allah, and the Prophet Muhammad, right, is the only prophet. Now, obviously, that has a specific meaning. In Islam, you also prophesize the coming Mahdi or the Messiah will come. They automatically are prophets. Do you see what I mean? You cannot have a term, or misunderstand the term seal of the prophets and say that's the last prophet. Because when your own teachings tell you of the coming return of the Mahdi, the guided one, and the Messiah. So what we need to do is look back and think, well, there seems to be a misinterpretation here. Muhammad was the seal, the best of the prophets. He united and gave the Arab Peninsula Islam. But it was also prophesied that other prophets would come at a particular celestial event. This event took place. Why you want to doubt something like that seems almost arrogant, because it's not a man's choice who God chooses. Aside from the backdrop of the prophecy, let's look back at what was going on in the world when His Holiness came and gave us the essay, The Teachings of Islam. The world was a turmoiled place. Islam was on the decline. India was totally under the grip of British colonization. It was just a few years before the First World War. The prophecy that the person would come to guide us at the most dire hour seems to be around that point when the promised Messiah came and delivered his essay, has guidance. Because after that, the guidance was there, and World War I, World War II, all the way to the events of this day. The problem's is really the misunderstanding of metaphors, where we say this.
I just want to clarify, just to make sure I understand what you're saying. I feel like you're saying that the prophet came He said, "You need a solution." The world rejected him, and we could see the consequences: World War I, World War II, one problem after the other. That's what I'm hearing. I'm imagining. Maybe if I
I,
misunderstood, why are you referring to World War I and II? Is that the reason,
because
or some other
His
reason?
Holiness came at the right time to give us guidance.
To stop
No,
these world wars, maybe, or what do you
yes,
mean? Yes, I see what you
exactly.
mean. Agree, agree. Yeah,
Like how Jesus came and he gave Christianity the teachings of love.
yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. His Holiness, the promised Messiah, came and he answered five fundamental questions, metaphysical questions to an audience. And those questions are the ones that sort of, how do you call it, give ultimate clarification and guidance upon what is written through his eyes in the Quran.
Hmm.
And as far as I can see, he was teaching a generation of people that would be facing these difficulties. He was sent down, has prophesied to give us the guidance on how we should be progressing our society. People haven't followed it like they never followed the Messiah originally.
Yeah.
It seems to be the same kind of thing, but now looking back at it, say 1400 years, sorry, 120 years later, I can see through what the promised Messiah was writing and reflecting upon what guidance that we need today. I don't think the promised Messiah goes against any of the teachings of Islam. He is prophesied in Islam. It maybe we don't like the choice of God's choice here, but
Hmm.
the promised Messiah did come. He has given teachings. You only need to read the essay to start to understand that there's
Yeah.
profound wisdom here and guidance. So all I can say here, it is a problem with metaphors, isn't it?
Yeah, so let me clarify for everybody else. So you're talking about the essay, Philosophy of the Teachings of Islam. I think I should put a link to it so everybody else can read it in the comments. Um, and the metaphor you're talking about is a seal of the prophets. And a lot of people try to say it means the last, which is a really strange belief. There's so much evidence that it's not. Even the Quran says, if you're a good Muslim, if God wills, of course, everything is if God wills, then one of the many spiritual blessings of being a Muslim is that you can be a prophet, which should be completely obvious in a way, because why would, if God has been sending prophets in the beginning of humanity, why would he suddenly stop? It's a very strange thing to believe, to think otherwise. But yeah, thank you for that. And from your response, the idea that the other Muslims are very eager to say that this prophecy was a fake, you didn't even bother responding to that, because I think it sounded like it was maybe a stupid response, that to say it's a fake
It's
prophecy
a,
that got fulfilled.
I mean, I don't want to be negative about their point
Yeah,
of views, but
sure.
it seems to be rather a spiteful response. Maybe because it didn't come from your particular sect. Maybe
Hmm.
maybe there's some kind of like we want him to be from our group and not from your group kind of attitude. When really at the end of the day, it's from the same teachings. Uh,
Islam.
and to turn around to say it's fake, I mean, they just need to go back to the Quran. It's already written that the Mahdi will come, that the Messiah will come. So if it's prophesied, and it's prophesied that the heavens, there is going to be there is going to be a lunar eclipse, it takes place, and a person comes with a message.
Hmm.
Who are we to judge and say that person's wrong? What we can do is we can look at what that person's saying. Now, His Holiness, his message has grown. From the point of that essay, that message has grown to the point that 20 million people across the entire world now believe his philosophy and see Islam through his eyes. So he has achieved something, something very big, just like the Messiah did when he first came. I can only pray that this kind of philosophy does grow and it reaches the masses. Because the problem here is the whole world has only got one view of Islam, either the Sunni divide, all that negativity. It needs really to see the world through the eyes of the promised Messiah, like I did. Look at the questions, understand it. It's not the Islam that is being presented to us, either through our Western media, right, or through the aggressions of any particular sect.
Hmm.
I, I,
So, yeah,
to say it's a fake prophecy, I think you're just discrediting your own teachings.
yeah.
It's
Let me put it another way. Do you think God would allow a fake prophecy of such magnitude, eclipses of the sun and the moon, to, be fulfilled for a fake prophet?
a prophecy of how the heavens will turn out 1,000 years from now is quite a big prophecy to make. And on that particular date where the prophecy is, when that full moon takes place, you have to notice what's going on. That was the celestial event predicted 1,000 years, a millennia earlier. When it took place, we need to take note what was happening. We can't have God coming down and sending 50 million people so we can keep guiding us because we aren't listening. The message was sent. It was at the right time. And what more do we want? A fanfare? Do you know what I mean? Lights to the sky and a disco globe. This is silly.
Yeah.
It was predicted in the heavens. That's what will occur. When that eclipse took place, the prophecy was fulfilled.
Let's whiz through. Thank you very much for that. Let's whiz through some of the comments. One is about your caricature name. His name is not Ulrich. It's
No, Ulrich is,
it's
is is the same name. It's different spelling. It's German. Yes.
oh, okay. But it's not his real name. His real. Do you want to say your real name? I've already said your real name on screen, but we call him Uncle here. Anyway, what's this? Is Ahmadi the same as Ismailism? They have their own leaders. So Ahmadi Islam is just true Islam, the rejuvenation of Islam. And yes, we have a Khalifa, which I'll be talking about later. This is what we should expect in Islam. You're supposed to have a Khalifa and you're supposed to have unity. So I'll be talking about that in a bit. Khalid Safir is not doing enough research to see if his prophet spoke the truth. The eclipses mentioned occurred from the beginning of the time, a few times in Ramadan, according to scientists. So this is okay, cool. So somebody's done some research. Good. Uh, so it has happened before in over millions of years, but has it ever happened as a prophecy in fulfillment for somebody? That's the question. So this says, for our Mahdi has never happened. No two these signs have never happened before as a sign. It's not that it's never happened before, but it never happened as a sign for somebody. So that's the answer to that. Try not to. I think I'm not being annoyed with you, but if somebody who wants to where is the authentic prophecy? Here's the authentic prophecy on screen. We've even got a link to things, and I'll give more information. Yeah, but try not to say somebody hasn't done enough research if you don't really know me, especially if I've been debating for so long. I'm not angry. I'm just saying for your own benefit. It's not. I respect you for being here. And I think for your own benefit, try not to say somebody, just don't try to be insulting, like you haven't done research. Like, have you seen the huge amount of videos I've done, the huge number of debates I've done with Muslims, and they've never been able to answer my debates? Like, that doesn't sound like no research. I definitely do agree, though, and I'm going to say something maybe it sounds like I like to say I hardly know anything, yet people can't beat me in debates. That's where I like to come from. Um, it's easy to choose. Let's go through one more and then we'll go to the next one. It's easy to choose interpretation to suit your narrative. So I don't know what interpretation is wrong with what I'm saying. It's very, very clear prophecy. As I said, the only interpretation might be the first night means when it's actually possible. So I do recommend, if you want, we can talk about this as well. Um, we can talk about how the eclipses work and whatever at some point. I don't want to get into very technical discussions. in a video because it'll take the rest of the video about how eclipses work. He also said ignoring authentic hadith. Nope, not ignoring authentic hadith. Yeah, so what he's saying authentic is that there are people think that if it's not in the six main books, okay, then you can discount all these saying. Hadith means saying. That's not correct. Why would that be correct? They're man-made books in the first place. They're not infallible. It's actually there are problems. There are mistakes, definitely mistakes, even in the so-called authentic Sahih Hadith, like three different ways of doing ablution. Right? Some say do it once, some say do it twice, some say do it three times. Right? So it's. I mean, that's a good question. Go on, Ulrich. Why are you not a Muslim? Go for it. That's a good question. It's a genuine and good question. Go for it. I'm interested myself.
Thank you for asking me why I'm not a Muslim. First of all, how do you know I'm not a Muslim, and what is a Muslim? And let me explain it in a different way. You know, in Christian religions, you've got all these various denominations, Catholic, Protestant, etc. They're all Christians. But unlike Muslims, they don't say you're a non-believer to each other. They still call each other Christians. Whereas in Islam, the Sunnis, the Shias, and the Sufis, you can't even decide who is a Muslim, and you're still arguing about it. So imagine me wanting to come to Islam. Well, you know, what is a Muslim? And let me explain what I am. All my life, I have been brought up praying to one God. Okay, whether you understand it or not, and that God's name is Rab. Okay, I believe in one God, and the name of my God is Rab. I am a Punjabi, Indian, I may be a Hindu, but I'm no different in the sense that the promised Messiah was an Indian, Punjabi, and a Muslim. We come from the same place. So when you say, why am I not a Muslim? How can you say I don't? How can you say I'm not a Muslim? Because there's no such definition clearly, because no one seems to be agree. But what I can say is, I'm thankful to Khalid for guiding me to the teachings of the philosophy of Islam, simply because prior to that, I had no time for Islam. I had a very negative view of Islam. Now I don't. Now I'm slowly, through Khalid, starting to see the beauty of Islam. And I'm not teaching Khalid his religion. We believe in the same God. There's only one God, his name is Allah. There's only one God, his name is Rab. Whatever you want to say, we don't have to follow the same book. The same Rab that I pray to.
Just for everybody's note, if people don't know, I mean, a Muslim should know. Rab means it's one of the names of God. Let's say Rabbul Alameen. Yeah.
And the same
so that's what he's talking about. Yeah.
That's the same in Hinduism. You know, in the Punjab, God, the one God is called Rab. So I'm saying that because that's the God I have been brought up believing. There is no difference between my religion and Islam. The more I look at it logically, we've got the same teachings. All our teachings lead us to connect with the one God. All our teachings teach us to stop being a savage, to stop being hedonistic. All our teachings teach us how to become rational, decent human beings, how to fulfill our obligations to this world as parents, as society and community members. And finally, both our religions teach us the same way to connect with God. So what's the difference? We talk about children of the book. You know what we really are? Children of Rab. And Rab has given us many books to guide us. As Khalid has rightly pointed out, we've been in this world a long time, and God sent many people to guide us. Because as humans, you can see the stupidity of the questions we ask each other. We constantly need guidance, sometimes divine. This is why you imagine that I'm explaining to Khalid about his own religion. No, there's only one religion, and that religion is Rab. If you approach Rob in the correct way, then yes, you can say Narish is a Muslim.
Brilliant.
I have no qualms with that, as long as I'm a good Muslim and that I pray to Rob properly. As long as you can see that, then I'm happy to be called a Muslim. It doesn't bother me. There's so many names we've got for each other. Even in Islam, Shia, Sunni, in Hinduism, Arya Samaj, Shaivism, we all believe in one God. And if we don't understand that, guess what? We failed. We are still stuck in that one point where we have not progressed to the real parts. I look at all the Speaker's Corner arguments. Everybody argues this verse says this, and he says that verse says that. And none of you understand the meaning at the end. They're all supposed to teach you to connect to God, not sit there arguing stupidity. If you look at yourself and you look at what your religion teaches you, it teaches you to concentrate upon yourself and your community. I hope what me and Khalid are doing here as a conversation is simply that. Not explaining to each other about our religions, but getting a better understanding of a religion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your answer. Appreciate that. Yeah. So I suppose maybe what I'll throw in is that when I talk to people about Islam, only at the end of the course I say, how about maybe put a label called Islam on yourself if you think it's really going to help you. Let's say you don't feel that, but you feel like whatever you feel, do that is my sort of answer, right? I do think God has told us this is the time that you need to be a Muslim because there are lots of problems and we need that unity. Everybody needs to come under this one banner called Islam, which is going to guide humanity, because right now humanity is broken into all these factions fighting each other. But having said that, let's say you're a true Hindu in the sense that we are talking about already, believe in one God and do all the things. You're not going to be fighting other people. Fantastic. My main thing is let's come to God and let's have less trouble in the world. And that's it. I don't really care about labels too much. So I've seen labels being misused all the time. It almost means nothing. But that doesn't mean I don't think Islam is not valuable. I think let's just do the right stuff as much as you can. That's all. It's a very simple answer. Anyway, so next one. I just thought there are so many prophecies, but I'm just kind of trying to pick some of the really simple ones, especially since, let's say you're born in India, right?
No, I was born in Birmingham.
Oh, so there's no real Indian connection.
No, totally. My family's in India. I go back to India. Well, before COVID, I was going back every year. I've got a farm. I've got land.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I've got my own farm. I've got my own house. I've got my own land. In my village, we've got all my cousins live there. It's quite similar to your village, Khalid. That's why I look at all your village videos, because it makes me homesick.
Yeah.
No,
So
my
nice.
connections with India a lot more. I was born here, but my mum and dad were from Punjab and India. I learned all about my religion and traditions from my parents. I went back to India for the first time in 1987. After that, I've gone back every other year, and I've travelled all over India, and I absolutely love the place.
Beautiful. Maybe I'll have to go with you sometime.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, and you have to come to Jordan, God willing. So
well, the thing is, the Promised Messiah's birthplace is only an hour and a half drive from my village.
Oh wow!
So it's not that far away. This is why I keep saying I understand his essay, because it seems to be written for the Punjabi mindset.
Wow!
The whole audience, because it appeals to me so much.
So I'm going to talk about this town where the promised Messiah, Moses came. So there's a prophecy that says the Messiah will come east of Damascus. And I like this one because it's a very simple prophecy. You don't have to read much. This is a quote from part of it, the prophecy. The Messiah, peace be upon him, will descend from the heavens east of the white minaret of the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus. This is a quote from Prophet Muhammad. And so there's Damascus. Let me see. Oh, well, I pasted it. Oh, okay. Let me get the rest of the image. It's kind of off the edge. I didn't realize. I thought it would automatically. Because you can't see Guardian at the moment. Let me press enter a couple of times and it'll fix that. Oh, come on. Okay, let's cut it and paste it again. Let's see if we get lucky. Oh, there we go. Yeah, there we go. All right, so there's Damascus. There's Guardian. Very much, very, very east of Damascus. Um, that's Google Maps if people are wondering. And that's just another simple prophecy done. Like, I don't know. There's one thing again, one thing after the other. Why would God make so many prophecies so clearly be fulfilled? And there are much more detailed ones. Um, I don't know. What do you think? I just feel like something that precisely east. It's just like makes you think. If you're honest, should make you think a little bit at least.
Well, I was not familiar with this, that the Messiah would come from east of Damascus. So I'm quite intrigued with your map showing the sort of like eastward line from Damascus to Kedan, but I was not familiar with this. But I can
Hmm.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah, and by the way, that funny eastward line is the best I could do on Google Maps. It said, "How do I get from Damascus to Guardian?" I'm not sure if it does it by foot or something, but it was the only way I could get it to point out two locations in one go. So I don't think you can have two pins in one go. Maybe you can. Actually, you probably can, but I did it all really quickly. But anyway, yeah, it's pretty much a straight line. So that's just another prophecy, one of many. In fact, people, like you were saying earlier on, people go, that's not the prophet that we were expecting. A lot of them were expecting an Arab prophet. And even make fun of the idea that the prophet could come from India, which is really strange. Why would you make? I was talking to one of the most famous YouTubers who refused to debate me, but all he was doing is his insult was like, "Oh, you got a prophet from India." It's on YouTube. It's like, but the Quran itself says we've sent prophets from all people to all times. I mean, to all people. Like, what's wrong with India? Do you know? Like, but anyway, so there's India east of Damascus. Maybe people thought it would be next door to the minaret, east, but east is east, and it's very much in fulfillment of that prophecy. One of many, many prophecies. Do you want to say anything else besides that? I don't. We don't
I,
need to
I,
linger on it. It's up
I
to
just want
you.
to go back to that YouTuber who was sort of saying, the prophet came from India. The
Yeah, Ali
Punjab.
Dawa, very famous person.
Ali Dawa, yes, yeah, I've watched a few of his. I simply want to say, look, Mr. Dawa or anyone else, you've got to remember, a long time ago, most of northern Punjab was conquered through Muslim conquest. So at that particular time, when you think about it being sort of like India now, you're just referring to new borders that were created at various times. At one time, Islam did come, to India, northern India, and it did sack and loot the place, but it did leave behind its legacy. So to say that India is simply a sort of Indian is wrong. If you come to India, you'll find many mosques, Muslim shrines, and especially in the Punjab. So you can't simply say that it's an Indian country. There's a huge, huge uh, Islamic heritage in there, especially in the Punjab. So it makes sense that from amongst Muslim people came the Mahdi and the Messiah. I mean, I would have agreed with Ali Dawa if a Hindu had stood up and says, "Hi, I'm the Messiah," or "I'm the Mahdi," then I may have said,
Hmm.
"Yeah, I agree with you, Ali Dawa." All right. But no, this is a Muslim, from a country that was, how do you call it, ruled also by the Muslims for a long time. The Mughal emperors were Muslim. So there's a huge Islamic influence within India, and that cannot be denied. The problem is British history is what teaches us. It teaches that we've been divided. We haven't. Islam was all part of, how do you call it, the Punjab. And we lived
Mm,
happily. It's only the British that gave us the idea that we've got a conflict. We've never had a conflict.
mm,
If you go to
interesting.
India, you'll find many, many Hindus that will go to Muslim shrines just to pay their respect.
Wow,
Which will
wow.
be, again, which brings me to a point.
We shouldn't believe the news because they've got all this Hindu. Was it Hindu? What they call it? I can't remember. This nationalistic. Who's your current prime minister?
Modi,
Who
Modi.
Modi? Is he really winding up all them? I don't want to go into it too much, but it sounds like the picture you're giving is a different one from what we get on TV, where you know people
No,
fighting each other.
you've got to understand that what we're seeing on TV is what the West wants you to see.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
also, I want you to understand that all the agitations that are going on currently, things like Israel and Palestine, Pakistan and India, Ukraine and Russia, these are NGOs that come into our countries that manipulate things and mess us around, that cause conflict. We
Hmm.
have not got anything, how do you call it, bad amongst us. If you think about India and all the different religions that are there that live peacefully, why is it that suddenly we can't get on with Muslims? Why is that being put into the forefront? I watched
Hmm.
When I watch very, very old black and white Indian films of the olden days, all the villages have got Muslim characters that nobody sort of, they're quite nice people, religious people, likable
Hmm.
people, but they're part of that village.
Yeah.
Even another point is you believe in the Messiah. On the way on a pilgrimage to a shrine in the mountains, I was in 1987 with my mom. I went to Shri Nagar.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And I didn't know what was there. We stopped overnight because we wanted to do the walk all the way to the shrine, which takes about 3-4 hours going up the mountains. So we stayed overnight, and the next day my driver says, "Do you want to see the shrine of Jesus?"
Oh wow.
And I went along, and I have seen that, and I came back and I told people I've seen the burial place. People up to this day, nobody believes me. I've been there twice. I've
Wow.
seen it with the footprint. It's there for all to see. There's a
Wow. The one
person.
with the hole in the foot, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
There's a person there that explains all this to people who actually come and are interested. I've only been there twice, and '92 was the last time I went there because it's a pilgrimage in Kashmir up the mountains.
Yeah,
So
wow.
when
Wow.
we talk about like India, in a sense, that line is one landmass. These little Syria, Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan. You know, the
Yeah.
colonizers made those. Let's forget
Interesting.
these silly borders and start looking at the things. We're one landmass, and the ideas that progressed all the way from where Damascus is, right across the sort of Asian
So I'm going
continent.
to jump in. So I'm going to explain a few things. So Ahmadi Muslims say Jesus was a prophet of God, but a human being. He didn't fly up to the sky. The Quran even says you can't fly up to the sky. Even Prophet Muhammad couldn't fly up to the sky according to the Quran. Even though Muslims believe that now. And so he was a normal human being, therefore he died. Therefore, he must have a grave. That's not an amazing thing to believe. It's actually amazing that anybody believes he didn't die. Um, and yes, so he's got a grave, and he is amongst his people because in that area there are like 300 villages or something named after with Jewish names, Hebrew names. Um, there's so much evidence. I've talked about this already in some other videos, but I'll definitely talk about it more. And Ahmadi Muslims say that. They said, like, he's there, he's got a grave, and there's so much evidence. And as time goes on, more and more people will realize that, Jesus was a man, he had a grave, and he died amongst his tribes that he promised to go to in the Bible because he said he's going to search for the lost sheep of Israel. The lost sheep. The lost sheep means the people who were spread out by King Nebuchadnezzar the first or second, I don't know, who took them as slaves, and then only two tribes came back to Judea, where the story of the Bible was set. The rest of the 10 tribes were elsewhere, all over Afghanistan, different places. This is really well known for anybody who wants to research. Anyway, I'm going to whiz through some of the comments, so I always appreciate them. Where do we start from? Here or something? Oh no, we did that one. What is Rob? So not Rob, but Rob. I explained to that's a Christian lady, Alika, who's asking, and so I gave the response. It's a name of the Rob in Arabic means the sustainer, the developer as well. It means a lot of things.
The spelling is RAAB,
Oh yeah, I go for like when we pronounce it. I know
Rab.
it's yeah, exactly, exactly. How do we pronounce it? That's what I go for. But anyway, Allah never sent a scripture that was preserved. The Quran is the only book that was Allah promised to preserve. Yeah, I agree. So that's a reason for believing in the Quran. I would say, would we say the Hindu scriptures entirely preserved? Do you have any thoughts about that?
We don't have scriptures.
Okay, okay, that'll be a short answer. We could talk about that in a whole video, right? So, okay, do you think Allah created Hinduism as well? I do. I
I
don't know.
do.
What do you think? Yeah.
Allah, Rab, Allah and Naranjan, the nameless one, the one we cannot perceive. Yeah, he created us all. Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Christianity, Judaism. The only thing he didn't create was junk spirituality.
Yeah. So yeah, we agree. So in the Quran it said guide Allah's been guiding people for all time. Why would he just start with, let's say, the Abrahamic faith? So I think some people are under that impression that God just started guiding people from Judaism or something, which is a bit odd. God guided the Aborigines, God guided the Red Indians. They all have very similar beliefs. Allah still guides us through His scripture and through teaching the Prophet Muhammad. Yeah, so if that's true, but yet there are so many different sects. So you have to think about what's going on there. What's this? Did I? I came too late. It seems very interesting. Glad you find it interesting. Thank you, Alika, for that comment. You've done debates, and I've been beaten each time. Blah blah blah. Please just tell me one debate in which I was beat. I'm just a human being. Of course, I could be beaten, but people just a claim. Actually, give me just put in this video the video which I was beaten in. Just give the quote, and we can have a discussion about if I lost the debate. Apparently, other people was it even your Ahmadi brothers. So whatever it doesn't matter even what they say. It's like I'm just based. What's the logic? Give me the logic. It could be an Ahmadi person who doesn't understand an argument and he thinks I've lost or something like that. I don't know. Even Razi, a famous person, who's an Ahmadi Muslim, claimed that, but I showed him. I said, even do a live stream with me, show me where I'm wrong. So anyway, these are silly things, really. Just give me actual arguments, not just claims. Who is Vishu Ram Christian then? That's probably for you then, Uncle.
He wants to ask me the question.
Yeah, for you. Yeah.
In order to answer that, we will need an entire program because first of all, we need to look at the different concepts of things like guru, teacher, avatar. When we talk about Vishnu, we talk about something that is unimaginable in that particular sense. It's part of something different. When we talk about Ram, we talk about the avatar of Vishnu. When we talk about Krishna, he is also an avatar of Vishnu. These are not God in themselves because God is so unimaginable that God cannot appear in this world. So in our teachings, these are avatars. Now that's going to be a completely different concept but to yourselves. But it's no different if you look at it in the sense of a prophet, a teacher, the person who guides you. No matter what different names we want, it's the same thing. I think Muslim, where you're sort of misdirecting yourself is, we all seem to want to call God by our own name. Do you see what I mean? It's like there's only Allah. There's only Allah. If you don't say Allah, then
You
you're
want to
wrong.
be sort of exclusive, I think, or to be the one who's right, sort of thing. And I think we
I'm not,
shouldn't have that attitude. We should like trying to. You should see everybody as your brother and sister and guide them as best you can in the way you think is whatever the truth is, sort of thing. what I'm saying is, like, if somebody says something that's correct, say that's correct. That's fantastic. You know what I mean? Like, you believe in one God, fantastic. Go on. But and that's what the Quran, by the way, says, that invite people to believe in one God at least. Sorry, you were going to say, Uncle.
I just want to say, address Muslim again. This is a very short answer, but obviously, if you ever want to discuss this with me via email, I'm more than happy to. But in Islam, right, you have God, the ultimate, all supreme being, the creator that we cannot know. Then beneath that, you have a second tier, what is known as celestial beings. These celestial beings are helpers of God, what you call angels, right? They're not God, they're helpers of God. So you've got a second tier beneath the creator. Now, not only that, aside from the angels, you also got other spirits that you identify, things like the jinn. So you've got these categories. Hinduism is no different in the sense that we have Rab, God, has the only creator. Then we have murtis, right? In the same sense that you have angels. You need to sort of relate to them in a similar concept of celestial beings that are helpers of God, but not God. They're guided by God, but they are not God. They can help guide you to God, but they are not God. So that
Hmm.
is the complete difference. And again, when we talk
Cool.
about nature spirits,
I'm
they're
going to cut you off there because now we're talking about a whole different thing, which is good. We need to talk about this at some point. I'm going to do this really quickly. So, Hindus are not part of the people of the book. Actually, I do believe they're part of the book. They've got a book, and people have an assumption that it just means just the Jews and the Christians. That's an assumption. But give evidence otherwise is my short answer. We can discuss that as well, right? At some point in the chat or whatever you want in the comments. Sounds like a Baha'i, whatever, maybe we all employ. You should embrace all religions to some extent. My short answer would be because the Quran says all religions originally came from God. He's talking to Alika, the Christian. I'm a Muslim. He doesn't believe in sex, but think, what do you believe in? That there are sects for a reason because they have different beliefs. So you have to question what is it that you believe. You certainly don't agree with what I say. So you have to put a label on what you believe. You can't just say you don't believe in sex and things like that. Anyway, so I would say one more thing, one more prophecy. I think that's kind of important. I'm trying to go for the really simple ones that people can check and see themselves. Okay, Ahmadi Muslims are the only ones with a Khalifa. That's a pretty big thing. A Khalifa is a spiritual leader that Muslims are supposed to have. They had it in the beginning, straight after Prophet Muhammad. Peace be upon him. Prophet Muhammad wanted Khalifas, one leader, one direction for all, unite all the Muslims. This is really important. And this is part of the revolutionary. You can only create a revolution when you're not divided, when you're not fighting each other. Look how many Muslims there are, yet they're so weak against all the Western nations because they're all divided. They've got different opinions on everything. Muslim says that he's just a Muslim, but everybody else is just saying they're just Muslims, but everybody's doing their different things. So there's no point having that. So anyway, and on top of that, Prophet Muhammad said there would be sects. So if you're saying there are no sects, then you're disagreeing with Prophet Muhammad. It's a very well-known prophecy. Okay, and there was another prophecy, but I'm trying to keep it really simple. Yeah, I'm always trying to say less rather than more because otherwise you can go on forever. There's a prophecy regarding the return of the Khalifa as well, and a very precise one. But this one came up first from my quick research that I was collecting notes for. Says my people, the Muslims, will be divided. I translated from the word ummah. I try to not have too many Arabic words. My ummah will be divided into 73 sects. All of them will be in the fire except for one, and that is the Jama'ah. Jama'ah means a united community. There's only one united community. That's the only people, the only ones with a Khalifa. So if you go to Sunni, people think Sunniism is a sect. It's not a sect. It's an umbrella for many groups of people. They're definitely not united, and you can see how disunited they are because if you go to one mosque, you'd have one imam, and you go to another mosque, you'd have a different imam, and they're not related to each other. There's no connection unless they're run like in Jordan by the government. But the government is not like is run by a sect. It's essentially can't call it exactly secular, but it's not a religious entity. So we're the only people where you go to all our mosques, they're all connected, they're all following one Khalifa. And there are many, many benefits of that. For example, we're the only ones who really pay for our own mosques. All the other British mosques, they always make fun of us saying we're British agents or something. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but some weird idea that we are created by the British, yet we're the only ones who pay for our mosques, and all the other people, all the other Muslims have to go to these, label themselves a charity, and either get money from Saudi Arabia or get charity money from British government. Yeah, so maybe I'll go through the rest of the comments later. But what do you think about this? So we're supposed to be the only people who are, even though there's millions of differences between the different kinds of Muslims, we're the only ones with a Khalifa. And we've had Khalifas for over 100 years, I think. I can't remember exactly how many years now, but definitely over 100 years. And people don't seem to see that as some sort of sign, even though there's prophecies regarding, there will be a Khalifa, which I haven't written here, but this one itself is saying there's only going to be one united community. I should have put it in brackets because I copy pasted it very quickly. United community. You can only have a united community if you've got one leader. What do you think about that? Like, that people, I've talked about this so many times in Speaker's Corner, nobody seems to think that's even relevant or important.
Well, the situation is the leaders are very important within any kind of group that you get. Even in a society, country, whatever, you all have leaders. My understanding of a Khalifa is no different from the way that we're taught. In the way sort of Sikhism has gurus. You have somebody who's your spiritual leader that helps guide you. I can see nothing wrong with it. I can only see a benefits. It makes more sense to have one person that debates and guides people rather than to have sort of several different people, preachers, that may be interpreting things differently from each other and causing a confusion. To have one leader allows for more clarity. It doesn't stifle debates because obviously you can still debate amongst your group, but having one person to be the voice of the community, it makes sense to me. There's nothing wrong. And I can accept that having a Khalifa or a guru is probably a more advantageous position than to be in a situation where you have multiple interpretations of any text.
I'm going to wind up. Thank you so much for that. I'll just say, yes, you definitely need a leader. I'm about to join another stream in a minute. And the reason, like the fact that we've got a leader made us to have the first mosque in London, the biggest mosque in London, even though we're such a tiny community. That's what happens when you have unity. And Islam has always taught unity. That's why we've got the pilgrimage to Mecca and so many other things to create unity. There's so many, saying the Prophet Muhammad saying unity gives you is a great blessing. And then there's a comment, there's no way that the Messiah would be born in a country full of idolatry. Wasn't Prophet Muhammad born in Mecca where there's full of idolatry? So people should think more clearly, don't just be against things. That's an obvious answer. I didn't have to think much about that one. So thank you so much for your time, Uncle. I'm going to try to stick to the time. We've already done 8 o'clock. I had a wonderful time talking to you. Learned so much from you already as well. And until next time, peace be upon you.
Thank you. And peace be upon you and blessings of God. Blessings of Rob to you and your family.
Thank you. Yours too. And thank you very much, everybody else. Bye. Salam. Peace.